Hey class, Coach P here. We're going to do the second part of this discussion on the video. A couple things we want to talk about. I know it's crazy right now. There's just so much stuff going on, but I'm going to try to keep to the discussion and talk about the separation of powers and the federalism and checks and balances. I do think that as far as federal government needs to control immigration. I just think that, with the states and the open borders and the federal government really needs to control all aspects of immigration. I know that's become pretty controversial and probably just because of how it's been talked about, even though over the times, depending on what side, everybody's talking about the same thing. It just, this time it seems to be a little bit more controversial, and especially in our state. But I do believe the federal government needs to control the immigration. As far as what I think the state should control, another topic that's been kind of out there is the healthcare. I think the state should control our healthcare. There's a little bit of a fright for me if we looked at it on a national healthcare system or something like that, because we want everybody to be equal. It almost turns into for me, everybody being on Medicaid. And a lot of times, unfortunately, with those doctors, they don't get the best care out there. They're not incentivized. And I think that we should be able to have a little bit more say and be able to go see doctors or get the care that we want, even though maybe that costs more. But I think with the physicians, it definitely kind of curbs their incentives to do better or to want more and even to curb them. And so I think the states should be basically in control of our healthcare system. Now, a few other things. Now we start talking about the five factors. I don't think I would change our system too much. I know that was talked about, and if so, how? I think a lot of it would remain the same. I'm going to talk about a couple of those things, 5 of those things on either side. And then I'm going to finish a little bit different. But nationally, control side, I think obviously the military, national defense, that's pretty self-explanatory. The states shouldn't control that. Foreign relations, again, that should be on a national level. Regulating trade, I'm still staying there with the national control over that. And obviously declaration of war. There's one more. I'm going to come back to it on the state side. Education, I think the state should control. I don't think it should be done nationally. I would like to have more say on where my children get their education and what they're learning, and I don't want that to be a national standard of anything outside of maybe something that I want to choose. I do believe the state should control the public health on our own sides and where we're at. I know that they're going to get allocated money and aid and everything going that way, but I think the states should be in control of that. They obviously should control their own local government. The federal government should not control state government or local government. That should be done within the state. The other one that's kind of controversial and is a little bit tricky for me. When I do believe the states should control marriage laws. There's a lot of things controversial going on, whether you're talking about same-sex marriage. I mean, this stuff's been going on for a long time, even as far back when we started talking about the civil rights, and even before that with interrelation mixtures, marrying, and why should the federal government decide that collectively everywhere? I think it's a little bit scary, but it's a little bit back and forth. I just saw in New Jersey, you had a brother and sister get married. Now, there's not too many states. I think I read there was 2 states that talked somewhat about incest. I know that was a big deal for them. To me, I don't want to judge them, but I'm out on that. But I think New Jersey and Ohio were the only 2 that had any wiggle room when it came to incest. But the state should control that, I believe. And public safety, the state needs to we need to be able to do that on our own before they call in the National Guard or something like that. The state needs to. Going back on the national control side, a big one, and I wanted to finish with it, is I do think that they need to be controlled and have a lot to do with the civil rights. And that's kind of a touchy thing going on right now. with the, I'll say what it is, the murder of George Floyd. I had one of my high school coaches, a great man, shared something. He posted something on Facebook, and I want to share it with you. I'm not going to give any opinion on it. I want to share it with you just to give a little bit of thought. So I will read from that and let you take a look at an image that he shared and what he said with it. He says, "I've been struggling to process the murders in plain sight of Ahmaud Arbery and George Floyd. I'd hoped my generation would have learned from the history we've lived through with the civil rights movement. I'd expected we would have eradicated the stain of racism. Man, we didn't even come close. We made progress, but for every 2 steps forward, we took 1.5 back. Will Smith is right when he said racism isn't getting worse, it's getting filmed. Watching the space launch and cities rioting today feels like I'm back in the 60s again. The picture is spot on, but it's terribly sad. I hope the next generation have some more success than we have in figuring out a more just system. I am numb, but I am not powerless. I can control what I can control. I can listen and learn. I can humbly understand the privilege I have enjoyed and the responsibility that comes with it. I can empathize. I can vote. I can donate money to good causes. I can speak out. I can be an example. I can be aware." So I just wanted to share that with you guys just to give some thought when we start talking about the shift of powers and the separation of powers and checks and balances and how the federal government really needs to come into play, especially when we fall back and look at how we went from a dual system to a cooperative system, and now we have that marble cake. But the federal government really needs to come through even more. When we start talking about these issues, they're real going on right now. I know people talked about the 60s, but if we got people from the 60s that are being reminded or reliving these moments, that should wave some flags. And I think the federal government needs to step up and be in complete control of that, not the state. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoy the rest of the weekend. It's not 110, thank goodness. Anyways, see you guys soon. Take care.